Trustees, this is our meeting of Wednesday, May 21st, 2025. Item 1 is roll call, and I will call the roll. Mr. Schnoik.
Here.
Mr. Hermanette.
Here.
Mr. Bradshaw.
Here.
Harrison here. Ms. Henry.
Here.
Mr. Zoller.
Here.
Mr. Robertson.
Here.
Item 2 is Pledge of Allegiance and invocation. Please stand. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you for the honor of being here this evening representing our friends and neighbors. Please guide our work as we're here. Help us to work well together. Help us to be respectful of each other and those who have gathered. Help us to do good work. We give thanks for those who protect us while we're here in the police, fire, and military. Give them your protection and comfort to their families. Help Joni's foot heal. We ask this in your name. Amen. Item 3, consideration of the meeting agenda. Are there any additions, deletions, clarifications on tonight's agenda? Seeing none, is there a motion to approve tonight's agenda?
Motion to approve the agenda. Support.
Moved by Snoik, support by Hermanette, that we approve tonight's agenda. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say no. Our agenda is approved. Item 4 is public comment. This is an opportunity for members of the public to address the board of any issues of interest. There's a public comment period before each listed agenda item as well, if you're here for a specific reason. And then there's an extended period at the close of the meeting. Does anyone wish to address the board? If you could come forward, identify yourself, name and badge number, and welcome.
Good evening, everybody. Michelle Joy Young. I live on Camp Hall Lake. First, I want to say you guys are doing such a great job. It's a beautiful community. It's growing so well and in such great ways. I appreciate all of your work. I know these are not easy issues or things to do for our community, and I just appreciate all that you guys do. I do have a specific thing I'm speaking in favor of. You have an item under new business, 10B, ordinance, and various zoning ordinance changes. So I'm speaking in favor of allowing a larger accessory building in some zoning locations throughout Caledonia. I particularly would like to build a larger accessory building that would fit within your new zoning proposed ordinance. I'm speaking in favor of that. I think in general, when we're all able to put things away, hide them under, in a building as opposed to sprawled all over, things like boats and have a small RV, it's very difficult to keep that equipment clean and taken care of when we can't build a building large enough to put that in. So I appreciate your consideration on that. And again, thank you all very much for your work.
Thank you. A couple of responses. One, for those who don't know, this is also our sheriff who lives in our county, so lives in our community, so we're very fortunate to have her here. This is a first reading, so there's 2 readings, so we'll consider them tonight and then be able to adopt them at a future meeting. And just to that issue, I agree when people don't have enough room to store stuff indoors, they resort to it being outdoors, and then there's visual and blight issues, so there are some benefits to considering that, so thank you.
Thank you so much.
All right. And finally, you're allowed to leave, and we don't hold it against you as well. So you're welcome to stay, as we say in Watch Democracy in Action, but you can leave if you've addressed it. Any other public comment? Again, sir, if you could identify yourself and where you reside, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Jim Scavo. I live at 6937 Camp Hall Lake Drive. I'm also here advocating for the lifting of the restriction on the outbuildings. Just much like Michelle, she's my neighbor. We have property that we'd like to build a proper building that housing trailers and anything else so that we can reduce the yard blight that's out there. So again, advocating for that, and appreciate your time, and thank you very much.
All right, thanks for coming. Anyone else? All right, welcome. If you could give your name and where you reside.
I'm Angela Scott. I'm at 6921 Camp Hall Lake Drive. I, unlike them, am not looking to build anything, but I would like the restrictions lifted because it would be nice for everything to be in a building. They'll let people build a little bigger, get their boats away, get their toys away, clean everything up nicely.
Excellent. Thank you very much for coming. All right. Let me guess, you're against it. No.
Yeah, I'm a neighbor too. My name's Steve Forsyth. I'm on Campbell Lake Drive, and my property borders Jim's property where we're talking about the larger structure. And I'd just like to say I'm totally in support of that going up there, and I'm sure that the building that replaces the current one will look a lot better than the current one. So.
All right. Welcome.
You might notice a common theme here. I'm Tim Scott. I'm at 6921 Campbell Lake Drive, and like Steve just said, I don't have a building that I want to put up, but I'm in favor of them doing that because it would take care of the older buildings that are in place, the smaller buildings where people can't store things in and stuff is just spread out around them. So, thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Officer?
Hello, my name is Mark Belting, and I live at 6987 Campbell Lake Drive, and I just want to second all the comments that have already been made.
All right, thank you. Yep. Any other public comment? All right, thank you. With that, we'll close public comment. As I said, you can stay and watch. We're doing some exciting things tonight, and we're going to hear from our library folks in just a minute. But with that, board members, we have approved tonight's agenda. Having reviewed the agenda, does anyone have a conflict of interest? You're really all going to leave? No, I'm just kidding. All right, yep, have a good night. All right. Having approved tonight's agenda, does anyone have an interest in any item which would create a conflict for their discussing or voting upon that item? Seeing none, approval of the consent agenda, item 6. Reviewing those items, board members, is there any discussion or a motion to approve those items?
Make a motion to approve.
Support. Moved by Zoller, support by Snoik, that we approve tonight's consent agenda. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed, say no. The consent agenda has been approved. Duly note that we do have now, as a regular occurrence, report from board, committee officers, and staff. I find those very enlightening for awareness of the work going on in our office and in our community, so please take time to review those. And then also, we can move to unfinished business, is to approve the issuance of an RFP for design and construction engineering of Patterson and 76th Street for a shared use pathway and crosswalk. Manager Nugent?
Absolutely. So last board meeting, I was asked to bring this back. And
Could you speak into your mic, or I just, for recording purposes?
It's okay. Last board meeting, I was asked to take this memo back and kind of look at it again because Prine and Newhoff had done some preliminary work. I did get the CAD files. We have them on hand. We are able to use them. And then I got Todd to draw a map for us of where the proposed trail will be and what will be required of the developer, JTB, to put in and what will be required of the township. So that's in the back of the packet. And then I adjusted the dates to reflect a future timeline. But I believe I got all the requests to the board before I brought this back. This is just to, I guess for Dale's information, this is just to issue an RFP to put the trail for Patterson and 76th Street out to bid.
Did you look at the file that we had?
Yes.
It matches what's on the drawing here?
Yes.
Okay.
All right, with that,
The only
go ahead.
question, is it all right for me to ask a question?
You
Okay.
bet. Yeah.
The only question that I had was, I remembered, and correct me if I'm wrong, I believe Trustee Bradshaw, you had mentioned a long time ago when we talked about this, that there was gonna be some work done on Patterson with, I don't know if it was sewer or water or something?
On Craft.
Oh, that was on Craft. Okay, all right, then no worries. I wasn't sure which one it was on.
Especially with things going on in 26, we want to be cognizant of shutting down parallel arteries to
Right,
M37.
right.
So good question.
The only thing that I brought up in the past is this is adjacent to the large parcel of land that Microsoft purchased in Gaines Township, and I just wondered whether it made sense for us to do this north-south path on Patterson instead of having Microsoft put it in on 76 to make that connection to the Paul Henry Trail. I have since, I see the value in us doing it in the connection sooner to the village, I guess. So that's the history that I remember bringing.
Okay, thank you.
And I have had conversations with Gaines Township as well, and they are going to be requiring Microsoft to put in pathway along 76th Street on the Gaines side. So that will just be more of a connection. And now that we know that there will be a light at 76th and M37, once this is constructed, there is room for talking about extending it across M37 to Leopard Park in the future.
So, I wasn't here at the last meeting, but, that little strip at 76 and Patterson, I don't
red?
see the need in red. That goes to nowhere until someday maybe in the future. Why would we do that now?
I don't think we need to do it now. I think
would
as
not-
long as
I
it,
would recommend we take that out, because there's some other issues there.
yep, I can ask Todd to send me the map with removing that portion.
Because, the other corner where they're talking about by others, on the other side of 76th Street, that's only if that development goes through. That isn't a guarantee.
Do we take it out now, or do we leave it in and take it out when we go to bid?
I think we take it out and, and that'll be a future connection. So we really don't have to have it
Okay, thoughts on
until,
that?
you're talking about Microsoft doing theirs. Then it could be a benefit, but, that could be years down the road before they do any development.
Okay. Any objections to the removal of the segment identified by trustee Zoller?
I don't, because it connects just by going around, so.
Okay. All right, with that is an understanding that if it proceeds, that section will be excluded from the RFP. Any additional discussion, questions, clarifications? Okay, we have a recommended motion noted in the planner's memo. Does anyone wish to make the motion?
Make the motion with the amended area I talked about.
Support.
Moved by Zoller, support by Zoller, that we approve the issuance of an RFP for design and construction engineering for the Patterson N76 shared use pathway with the exclusion of that segment identified. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. And that will proceed. Thank you, board members. Item 10A is a presentation by the Kent District Library of their 2025 community report. We are joined by some members to do that. Some guests. Thank you. Welcome.
Good evening, board. My name is Christina Tazzler. I get the privilege of representing Caledonia and Kentwood and Gaines Township on the board of Kent District Library. And we're here to give you a little update on the library tonight, but also to say thank you, because to provide library services to this community requires a partnership between KDL and you. And we really appreciate that. Thank you. I was working from the library a few weeks ago on a Friday afternoon, and the joyful noises bubbling over from the kids area while I was sitting tucked in the back by the fireplace with my laptop reminded me of one of the things I most love about the library, their work with childhood literacy, the noisy engagement of these kids felt like the experience we want them to have at their library. This is a place where they belong and they can be themselves and they can explore the world. And when they leave, they can take an armful of books, right? And bring them back again the next time. Summer vacation is right around the corner. We've got loads of great things planned to engage kids and families for free while they're on break from school and help prevent the summer slide. You also have a fantastic crop of librarians at this branch in particular. And if you've not been there lately, this is your personal invitation. Stop by anytime. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Randy Goebel from the KDL leadership team.
Excellent. Welcome.
Good evening. I'm Randy Goebel, Director of Engagement with Kent District Library. I'm on the leadership team. I also oversee the marketing communications, in-person programs, and community engagement, which includes the bookmobile, which is a blast. Also, I want to echo what Christina said in thanking you for the partnership. We couldn't do what we do without you. It's an honor to be able to hitch our car to the Caledonia train. So I also want to mention two quick things. One is a little bit recent. It's not in the annual report, but that's that we won the IMLS National Medal last year, and with that it came some money, and also the Klein Award, which came with some money, and we invested that money back into the community. And one of the things that we did with that money was to seed a new scholarship program. And last week at the board meeting, we honored 2 people with $5,000 college scholarships, which was a great honor to be able to do that. In terms of programs, we did about nearly 6,000 in-person programs last year, which is a lot. And it's like trying to pick your favorite child. I can't really pick a favorite program, but I'd have a personal closeness to what we do with the World Affairs Council each year. And it's a 3-part series in the fall. We usually pick a program with World Affairs Council that has a local interest, but also global connections. This year, we're focusing on healthcare issues. Healthcare is so expensive, and when people can't afford it, it has a serious detriment on almost every aspect of their lives. So we're going to try to do a deep dive on that. You also have a new copy of the annual report from last year, and all the stats were up. Great, circulation was up, visits were up, program attendance way up, library cards were up. One thing I'll note on this chart, you see 2020, there's a big blip there. During the pandemic, we stopped expiring library cards that weren't used, so that's why that was high. We purged those cards that were inactive, but we went right back to a track of adding new library cards every month, every day actually. So the library is never more relevant than it is now. Also coming up, we have our Summer Wonder program that starts in June, runs through August. So if you've not participated in that, try it. There's a lot of great stuff for adults and families, and we hope you can join the Summer Wonder celebration with our branches. And with that, I'd like to introduce Lulu Brown and Ashley Smolinski.
All right, I've been watching the time.
Hey, ladies.
We're gonna make this fast. So I'm Lulu Brown. I am the Regional Manager 1 of the Caledonia Cascade Library.
And I'm Ashley Smolinski. I'm the Regional Manager 2. You'll see one of us there every week.
So just some of the things to call out in terms of the overall stat report that you'll see in the community report. You will see that overall circulation of physical books is going down, but digital circulation is going up. So the way people are interacting with our collection is very different. Some of the things that I think people love the most beyond our programs and beyond our WonderNote play space is the free printing that we offer. So we continue to see that grow. We offer 50 free prints a week for patrons. In addition, free faxing, free scanning of documents. A lot of people come in to use our free Wi-Fi. We still offer hotspots as well. One of the things that I think I was most proud of last summer was that we partnered for the first time in our branch with Feeding America. We offer Gather to Grow in the summer, and we offer free meals to kids. We served 810 meals our first summer in Caledonia. One of the most impactful stories was a mother who said she didn't know how she was going to feed her kids the first week of summer. She really didn't have food. And so we're excited this summer to expand that. We're going to go all the way up until the end of August. We'll also be going to Country Meadows and Dutton as well, dropping off meals there. So please invite anyone. We offer it Monday through Friday over the lunch hour. Librarians are there if they need anything, but there is no paperwork to fill out. Just come and get a meal if you need it.
Thank you.
Perfect. Yeah, I was just going to say, I was going to echo that our staff is fantastic. We're known for great customer service. People are friendly. We attract a lot of kids, a lot of families. But we also have a lot of people that just want to use computers. The other day when we lost power and we had tornadoes around, we've noticed quite a few people that are coming because they can get free Wi-Fi. They come, they stay. Also, I had somebody that was coming the other day that just mentioned that when we had that ice storm that they wanted to make sure that they were welcome at the library, and they're always welcome. So we're a community hub and we are proud of it. And thank you. Thank you for supporting us.
Thank
Is
you.
there any questions that we can answer from any of you?
Yeah, I asked you informally, but can you speak to parking and demand? We're happy to see full parking lots, but sometimes that creates an inconvenience. I remind people that there's additional parking immediately adjacent. It's just a walk in the park, I tell people to get there, but can you speak to how we're experiencing demand for parking and so on?
Yeah, I think definitely when the splash pad opened, it definitely changed some of the patterns. We've been more intentional with how we schedule those large presenter programs. So in the summer, you'll see Mondays and Wednesdays, it's typically going to be the larger families, and they're coming in usually with 4 or so kids at a time. So that's one of the things we've done to kind of help with that. In addition, our director of marketing provided these feedback forms. So we keep those right at the desk, and we always encourage if someone has a complaint about parking, fill this out, I'll collect them and I'll hand them back to you and talk with Allison about it, but we haven't had any turned in. So I don't know if you guys are still hearing about it, but we haven't been, other than the smatterings of it, we haven't been hearing formal complaints anymore.
Okay.
We also do try to manage expectations, and so we tell patrons when it's going to be busy and when when it's gonna ebb and flow. Like we do get big dips or high demand at 10 a.m., kind of dips around about 1 o'clock. So if parking's a struggle, come at 1, and then we kind of manage expectations that way. Dog park too also helps.
Yeah, thanks. All right, any other questions for our representatives? All right, well, thank you. We love our library. Thank you for being a part of that, and for coming tonight. And you too may leave or stick around for us to do our business, so thank you for being here. Yep. Item 10B is an ordinance. These are a collection of ordinances. These are under first read, so I say government's designed to move slow, so we'll read these once tonight and then have an opportunity to look at them again for adoption at a subsequent meeting. There is a memo prepared describing these. Allison, do you want to give us any updates? And I know Tim is involved as these have come through our planning commission as well.
This was one I haven't really been involved in, but they are just updates to some of our zoning rules, including garages, accessory building heights, driveway, recreational vehicle parking, internal access drives. There's quite a few things listed on here. I haven't really had a chance to really deep dive into them. If Tim has more.
Sure. I wouldn't say mine will be much of a deep dive either, but from what I recall when this came to the planning commission, these are the most common items that folks are having issues with when they're coming in to pull a permit or work with the township. So staff recommended a lot of these changes, and it's really just cleaning up the ordinance. And in particular, you saw the excitement from those on the Campbell Lake area. So one of the biggest changes I think for the community will be the maximum size requirement in R1, R2, and R3 for an accessory building. Used to be 396 to 792 square feet, depending on which one of those R1, R2, or R3 that you are in. And now that is going to match the agricultural district, which is, there's a table further on in your packet. So even if you have less than 1 acre now in any of those districts, you could have up to a 1,200 square foot accessory building to clean up people's yards and get, the toys and the stuff put away to try to clean up the community a little bit. I would say that was the main highlight of the meeting we had. Probably 8 or so public came and all spoke in favor at the planning commission meeting as well.
Okay, any other board member questions, comments?
So question, on this sheet here, the 1,200, 1419, that didn't change, correct?
Correct.
That's what.
Yep.
The only comment I have on it is, as doing a building and having one, it's, I guess I have more of an issue with what some of them look like, if you will. If there was a way to tie it together from the cleaning up, and that's.
That it matches the
house.
primary residence.
Like you use this as a guide, and then we have something that, however, there's a provision if you have the site, do something to match and it matches your exterior, you've got a 10-15% increase on whatever's available. Just something, because I look at it and I do agree with what one gentleman said, is whatever he builds is gonna look nicer than what's there, on those types of things. And I also agree with providing some of the places, especially in their area where they are, where they can put boats or they can put their stuff and it's not just sitting outside. Our whole goal, I think, is to clean some of this stuff up. And if there's something we can do and word it that way, I guess that would be my suggestion. But.
Okay. I also know I've received at least one call concerned an unintended consequence of at least one change regarding setbacks, parking boats in RVs, as far as right now in, I believe it's R1 and R2, and I could have this reversed, but we restrict where you can park things outside. And by applying this to all districts, as opposed to just some that we do now, residential districts, we could create unintentional non-compliance where it's truly not an issue, but someone's garage is near their side property line, and they don't have a neighbor, but that is where they park their landscape trailer, things like that. So we, maybe it's a concern, maybe it's not, but the time to decide if it rises to the level of reconsideration would be between now and the next meeting, that someone said, they know where that what occurs sometimes. So I'd be willing to look at, does it then come down to enforcement if no one complains, or are we gonna drive around trying to catch people who might inadvertently be,
I don't think that's ever been our goal for these, is to drive around and look.
true, yep. So typically, we only have concerns where, I was gonna say during board comments, but Dick, I drove down your street, and I typically turn to go my way, drove down your way because of some of the road closures. What's going on in your neighborhood
Boatyard.
is beyond,
It's a boatyard.
yeah, it's, to be that far from water and to have that many boats present is a head scratcher, but also, I think rises to the level of blight and not reasonable, so.
Well, interestingly enough, the one property there is, we've already had them in court, had a judgment against them for junk cars. And they made some progress, but then it never really got done. And now it's back and replaced junk cars with boats. And it's two adjoining properties. And I'm reminded of it every time I drive by there with my wife in the car.
Maybe go another way.
I'm not exaggerating, what, 6, 8 boats, maybe?
It's more than that.
Yeah,
There's a couple of jet
parked on a
skis, couple
2-acre
of
lot.
pontoon boats. I'm guessing they do like boat repairs or boat rentals or
yeah.
something. But what's going on there, and I'm glad this came up because I was gonna take a pic, send it to Lois and say, you gotta do something.
That's the question I have too, is like, what are some of the things we can do? Because right now, we don't seem to be, we have a lot of individual spots in Caledonia, 84th Street, you know.
Well, I'm sure there's a zoning violation in one of two ways. One is, it's the storage of stuff in the front yard, which I'm sure we have some zoning against. But the other is running a business. You know, you have to have a home occupation. And one of the questions the planning commission asked when that goes on is, you know, is there gonna be traffic coming and going? And so I think on that score alone, that would fail miserably in that regard. And I've had neighbors put notices in my mailbox saying, why aren't you doing something about
Yeah.
this? You're on the board, so
Yep.
I'm glad it came up.
Why don't they at least plant pine trees in front yard? It'd
Yeah.
at least block the blight. You wouldn't
Well,
see it.
It is, I think, beyond, like I said, if the neighbor brings home their camper because they're loading up for the weekend and I get that call, I'm like, lighten up, right? I mean, that's
Yeah.
temporary and occasional. This is ongoing and intensive. So
Yeah.
finding the way to enforce. Then I will say, once we get these on the books, we can still have a complaint-driven, compliance-minded, but the guy with 7 boats in his yard is going to point to the guy across the street who has 1 and say, how is he any different? And technically, he might be right if we have a prohibition on storage, but we've had many people point out all the others, we'd have to then, you know, hit everyone with a stick. So it does become an enforcement.
And I understand that, and unless we had an enforcement officer, and I don't think we're saying that we want that right now, but I do think, like the verbiage, Dick, that you're referring to, you think there'd be in there somewhere. I hope it is, and if it's
So it's
not,
gotta be, I'll find, I
yeah,
got it.
because that should be
But-
something we work
When
with.
he's sleeping
that.
on the couch, he has
Well,
time to read.
you know, we have an ordinance, for example, just from my recollection, when I was working with Lois on these, we have an ordinance that speaks to project cars. You can't have project cars in your yard. Well, these are project boats.
Yeah.
And to me, that's a simple connection between something that's a boat, something that's a car, but they're projects. I wondered if he had some kind of a rental business. There are so many boats there
Or storage,
or storage, but he's storing them in the front yard.
yeah.
Yeah, to drive by it,
Yeah.
it's not reasonable.
I do hear a lot that it's the enforcement of these things. We all recognize these different properties in the areas that we see, and it's like, then it comes down to, what's the next step beyond that, you know? And I
Well, we
think
have that, don't we, Allison? We got the
we have it.
letters.
we do.
We do.
But I don't see a lot of that happening.
It's complaint driven.
It's complaint
Yeah.
driven, that's why we can't go out looking for them. We have to wait until somebody gives us the complaint.
And so when we do get a complaint and we issue, what happens? Because I've also heard that.
Ends up downtown
Yeah,
eventually, judge orders them, and then they can comply. So it's timely, somewhat expensive, and doesn't always result in long-standing compliance.
Yeah, yep.
I will say one thing I've noticed too is that it says, you know, a vehicle, a car parked there has to be either licensed or under a cover. So you wag your finger at the person, then they put a blue tarp over the car, and that looks even crappier, you know? So you're picturing like a covered, you know, classic car. Okay, that doesn't look as bad, but then they take the bungee straps and a blue tarp and like, okay, now it just looks even,
Yeah.
you know,
So one of the things
less desirable.
one of the things I see on, you know, this is, you know, like, why do we care if somebody parks their landscape trailer on the side of their garage and it's too close to the right of way or the setbacks? Setbacks are for permanent structures. A trailer is not permanent. So why was this put in? You know, I think it should be totally removed. You know, you look at most people, if they have their camper, they put it on the side of their garage, or if they don't have room in the front, you know, but it's usually on the side of the garage for the summer, things like that. It's not permanent. Why does it matter if it's in a setback? Because it's
You
not
can
a-
put landscaping there,
You could
fencing
put
there,
You could put a cement pad there.
boulders.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Your
So-
driveway can be right on the line.
Correct. So why is this even, it's something I think should be removed.
So, well, that's why we, once in a while, take a look at these and try to make them work, because we do have instances where they don't work. And like I said, then we have things of the magnitude of Dick's, or, you know, there's other properties that have come to our attention that it's just beyond reasonableness, but then you have to have something on the books to go and ask them to come to some sort of standard. So,
Could I make,
go ahead.
well,
You
before
bet.
we leave the topic, I just want at least little feedback. Allison made the comment, we can't go out, I can't word it, can't go out and look for trouble. I think that we should go out, not maybe to look for trouble, but just see what's going on. For example, if the zoning administrator or anybody drove by that, they right away, I mean, it doesn't have to be a complaint, it's just such an egregious situation. And I've pointed out others as I've driven around, not looking for trouble, but they're, man, how does that happen? So I don't think we should be so focused on complaints that we ignore what's so obvious in front of us. We have ordinances, and I don't think we should see no evil until somebody else tells us about it. And I think that's too strict the other way.
Okay. Anyone else? All right, these will return to us, so if there's any amendments, deletions, we should have them prepared. Well, Madam Clerk, remind me, do we publish these, so we should do them?
We need them soon, because we do publish.
Okay, so
Next steps on that would be,
publish, then adoption.
Well, publish and second
Notice of
read.
adoption, yeah.
Yep, and then adoption.
So,
do we have what we need if we wanted to make some adjustments on some of these? I mean, we had a good conversation about it, but is there a follow-up that we want to do anything and incorporate that into a second read?
We do that on the second read, correct?
Yeah, we can do it in the
Okay.
second read.
Okay.
I do want to verify though, because I know one of the questions that I've talked to Lois about is that we do have enforcement in regards to vehicles, but not necessarily boats. So is that something we need to add? Vehicles including RVs,
yeah,
boats?
RVs, and yeah, we'd have to take a look at how we would define that. You know,
It depends, it's gonna depend on at the beginning of the zoning, what the definition is. There should be definitions at the beginning of it. You know,
Right.
vehicles are blah, 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 blah.
and these,
Brian,
yes, sir.
I look at this as what Dick brought up about the boats. That's obviously a business. That can be addressed from that standpoint of yes or no. You have a individual homeowner that has a boat. You know, you might go up to them and say, hey, you gotta put this in the backyard alongside somewhere, but you live in the country. That's why we all have these houses spaced out on 2 acres. The ordinances that we're talking about with enforcement of person having a RV trailer out or a landscape, you're starting to sound like an HOA. And, you know, we joke about that, but we gotta have some individual rights. But what Dick has brought up with the multiple boats, multiple cars, there's obviously issues there that it's done from a business standpoint. And it's not a reasonable homeowner. It's in excess.
Allison, to that point, I know we've addressed vehicles on these properties. Can we take action on the presence of the boats there? Can we initiate that action?
I can ask Lois and see if we can. But I do
Okay.
think that was one of her concerns, is because we don't have anything specifically on boats.
I'd say let's approach it first from a home occupation, that it would have to be authorized, and that frankly, it's not likely to be authorized, because basically if you operate something out of your home, it's gotta still look and feel like at home. If you have a CPA and the client comes and parks in your driveway, we don't know if they're there to play cards or get their taxes done, but you can't have outside, indications that there's a business there.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead. Yeah.
We distinguish between a home occupation permit and a home-based business. Home occupation permit would be, as you say, give piano lesson or help people with their taxes. A home-based business is a business, and one of the ways you characterize that is what is the traffic in and out? What is the impact on the neighbors? And in a case like this, whether it's boats or a guy fixing cars, you could have a guy that does the speed shop in his garage, and then you got cars in and out, you got the noise, you got all that. And so there's a distinction there, and I think even if you don't find relief under the how many, is a vehicle a boat or not, or a boat a vehicle or not, I think clearly there's an issue with the home-based business.
So we can approach it from that angle, even though the others is more about just a general ordinance on storage of vehicles, so.
I'll get the process started and have her take a picture, document, send a letter.
Greg?
My question is, why are we starting a process that hasn't been finished too? We need to complete the original process, and if it wasn't, then we go back to court.
I'd say this is an addition, though. The
Right,
original was
but-
parking of vehicles.
Right,
This is
and he got rid of almost all of them. And
But
then
he
he had a
quick
problem
finish.
with, he didn't have
The
a
pool.
permit for his deck, and then he
Mhm.
pulled a permit. But I think that gives them 6 months or a year to do anything with it. But most of the cars were gone, but he had a Jeep that's still there, and then some piece of equipment with a tarp over it. That's been there for 2 years.
That's okay though with the tarp.
Yeah, was it?
Yes, it is, eh?
Well,
Brian just
it's
brought that up.
compliant. I wouldn't say it's okay. Yeah.
What I'm saying though is, we have an ongoing problem that hasn't been completed. Add this to it.
Yeah.
And,
Okay,
All right.
I'll have her
Get it-
attach it to
get
that.
it finished.
One more thing, I just want to clarify, section 5, the part that we're changing relating to recreational vehicle parking is very specific. The parking or storage of recreational vehicles, campers, trailers, motorhomes, boats, boat trailers, horse trailers, snowmobile trailers, and similar recreational vehicles or equipment collectively and individually referred to in this subsection as such recreational vehicles are all limited. So we're
Pretty
working
broad.
on it right
Yeah.
now, and
Yep.
yeah.
We'd have new angles of enforcement.
But if
With-
we want to
with
modify that
clarification.
language, we-
Because,
now's the time.
you talk about some of those, there's houses like, I'll mention Rick's, where technically a trailer that Rick might have in his yard is in front. But he's so far off the road,
I think there's 200, if you're 200 feet or more, then it doesn't matter.
but, there's some of those clarifications I think we should, clear up. There's other people that have big, even less than 200 in the smaller lots, that they can't go in the back because it's a drop off. How do you?
All right, any suggestions should be submitted to the manager prior to this returning to us, so please do. All right, item 10C is a discussion and motion. This is a prepay option for the Emmons Lake drain assessment. The drain commissioner has identified the need for improvements within our community, and an assessment district has been set up, which includes the township. We have the ability to pay that over time, but that is with interest, and so we are now considering prepaying that to avoid the interest charges, as we do have some cash on hand. Ms. Manager or Mr. Treasurer, is that sufficient discussion? Or Dick, I guess, do you
Not
want
for
to lead us?
me. When this came up initially, just right off the top of my head, analysis of it was that we have more than sufficient money, and there'd be no reason to borrow money and pay interest when we have more than enough money. In fact, if you look at the treasurer's report that's in your packet tonight, the general fund currently has a fund balance of $5,186,000. And by the time we make the budget amendments with the trail not going in this year, we'll have a budget surplus this year. So it's, I don't want to say it, but it's nuts not to pay this.
Yeah, and
It's been said.
speaking on Dick's point, if you guys look at, I will say there is a clarification. When we got the letter, it said that we had to pay it by the 22nd to avoid it being put on the tax bill. Dick spoke with the drain department and they said that they would accept it after, as long as we paid it in full. If you look at the installment of the plan over 22 years, the township would not be paying the $755,000, it would be paying $1.128 million. Just by paying it over time.
I'd make a motion that we prepay the township's portion of the assessment.
Bless you.
Thank you.
Yeah, that is my motion.
Support.
Motion's been made that we prepay the township's obligation under this assessment. Moved by Harrison, supported by Hermanette. Discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Thank you, board. Item 10D, this is a motion to approve Kinsey Street sewer design participation at the expense of $9,600. Madam Manager?
Absolutely. So the village approached the township about putting sewer in down Kinsey. This would represent, I believe, 5 connections, which the property owners would not be required to hook onto the system until their septic fails. The state law states that if you are able to hook on to public sewer, if your septic system fails, you are required to hook on to the public system. We've had issues here in the past, so this $15,000 per property, that will be charged when they hook on, but it could be tomorrow or in 20 years from now. That price wouldn't change. What this memo is asking for is that the township pay $9,600 to Leeson Vanderbrink for the design of that system for the sanitary sewer.
Okay, and for clarification, will this come out of the utility funds or general funds of the township?
Come out of the sewer fund.
Sewer fund.
Sewer fund.
So it's in addition to the utility, and the cost will be borne by the utility. And then there's a uncertainty regarding recovery, but at least we have the ability to serve those properties, and we're doing it at a opportune time when the road construction is taking place.
So I guess the question for me is that this 9,600 would be, if I understand it, just for the design. And so when the sewer goes in, I'm assuming that we're understanding that we'll pay for that as well. The
The construction would also be at our cost.
A separate cost.
Do we know what,
Is that the 57,000?
No, that's that's for doing the road and drainage.
that's the entire, yeah.
Dick, I think-
75,000.
I think the answer to your question is it's 15,000 times 5. That's why it's roughly 15,000 per property.
Okay.
So, and that probably also includes the 10,000 or so for design. So
But
maybe
we as the township would front that money.
Correct.
Right, okay.
and then the sewer fund would be paid back when they connect.
So 10,000 for design, 75,000 for construction. To give insurance to 5 homes?
Well, and I think it's more than that too. It's water quality. I mean, people are,
This is sewer.
Or
Right,
he's saying
but
that you're not putting your.
the health department is
Oh,
saying that it's
failing
not
septic.
percolating
Oh, right,
and
right,
you're then potentially drinking dirtier water and, yeah, I think it's the right thing to do as a civil engineer.
My only concern is why are we paying twice for soil borings? They're doing soil borings for the road and drainage, sanitary, they're already gonna do it. And, you know, we don't usually use them. Why are we paying an outside engineer to do something that we would do?
Because they're probably doing the engineering for Kinsey Street.
They're doing it, they're doing this is for the
Maybe they're just
village.
splitting the cost, Greg, maybe they're only doing it once and the cost is 2,400, so they're splitting the cost.
That would be
How's that
my
for a
assumption.
guess?
Well,
Yeah,
when I see that, it's like
yep,
red flags.
I'm guessing
I mean, they got,
the total cost is 2,400 and they're splitting the cost between the road and the sanitary.
man, why are they, shouldn't be that way.
there is a little bit of report on the soil borings. Obtain a series of soil borings in the project area to assist with development of the project scope. We've assumed 2 shallow borings at a depth of 5 feet and 2 deeper borings at a depth of 15 feet to provide guidance for both road design and utility design. The deeper borings would be necessary for the sanitary sewer.
All right.
Thank you, Tim.
All right.
I'll make a motion. We approve the payment.
Support.
Yeah, I was a hesitant student at the utility committee on why we would do this. I do think it's, well, small in utility standards, you know, $85,000 is not a lot of money. But if it's only to benefit 5 properties and general health and welfare, I still had paused. There's no requirement that they even use this additional benefit. It's not, my experience has been they're not likely to use it until they need to use it because they already have a septic system. Is it a best practice? Yes.
Maybe one more thing to maybe make you and other board members feel better. If and when they need to replace their septic field, that's probably also gonna cost about $15,000 even in today's dollars.
To
So,
them.
right, so the connection to just connect to the sewer
Connection will be the same. It'll be
is
the cheaper
about,
choice,
right,
really.
so, and if it's 10 or 20 years from now, that connection cost remains the same, but the cost of a septic field is only probably gonna continue going up.
So we're buying them cheaper insurance
But the
at no
apartment,
cost to them.
the apartment
We're
complex.
government, we're here to help.
That's already
What
on,
about the apartment complex?
that's already on it.
Yeah,
That is on the sewer already? Okay, so this is an extension from there down to 100th?
Pretty much.
it's the
Okay.
right thing to do, and I get it, but like I said, and would it be right to force people to connect when they have perfectly good septic systems? No, I'd probably wince at that too, so, just saying, but we at least thought about it. And it is real money to real people, but, as far as the system goes, it's probably the right thing to do. And community benefit.
Is there a second?
There was,
Yeah.
all
There
in
was.
favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. There we go. Item 10E, a motion to approve the 2025 tax rate. Mr. Robertson, our treasurer.
All right, well, I have a memo in there, it's labeled 10E, I think I explained it. The township has 3 millages on the tax bill. There's the operating millage, which once again was reduced by Headley. We're down to .6572 mils. I think we remain the lowest operating millage in Kent County, I think. The 2 other rates are the fire department or public safety. Remember, we approved the renewal of the millage, which at 1.9236, but that's been reduced by Headley to 1.9041. And the interesting one is the library. That millage is determined by the bond payment that we have to make in 2025. And, you know, as our tax base increased, typically the millage rate has gone down. It's gone down quite a bit again to .133 mils, where it was originally approved at .32. So it's about a third of what it started at. However, I just point out that toward the end of the bond period, which goes till 2031, they backload the payments, assuming the tax value will go up. So the payments will go up, but I don't think the millage will approach what was originally approved at .32. But for this coming year, it's .1332 mils.
Okay, thank you for that introduction. Any questions for the treasurer? Thoughts on the request?
Make a motion to set the 2025 tax rate.
Support. By Zoller, support by Hermanette, that we approve the 2025 tax rate as presented. Discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed, say no. That has been approved. Final item, 10F, a motion to approve payment to Green Development Ventures LLC in the amount of $66,183.75 for a water main oversizing at the Craft Farm site condo. Ms. Nugent?
This was brought to the attention of the utility committee. Green Development Ventures is the Alan Edwin Development on Craft. They're looking at oversizing from an 8-inch water main to a 12-inch, which will service the South Belt Industrial Park. It's the township's policy to pay the developer the difference to upsize or to make that bigger. So that difference in cost is $66,183.75. And that will be paid through the water fund.
All right, so they're putting in a pipe, it would be sized at 8-inch to serve them, but in order to serve the entirety of the system, 12 inches the recommended size, so we are being asked to pick up the difference with that as an understanding. Any questions? Is there a motion?
Move approval.
Support. Bradshaw moves approval, Herman has supported. Discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no, and that item is approved. Item 11, public comment. Any public wishing to comment? All right. Any board comment?
I'm good.
I'm good.
Brief update for Planning Commission. We did have a significant application from J&H, I guess gas stations. I'm butchering their title, but I think most people know who they are. With the many gas stations they have around the community. There were 2 drive-throughs, 2 buildings, and some separate retail. They did mention Jimmy John's as a likely tenant, but the applicant did end up requesting that the Planning Commission table the review so that the applicant could improve the plans. There was pretty significant comments from the planner and engineer, so we'll anticipate seeing that back in 2 to 4 weeks, but we would need to amend the PUD potentially to allow that type of use. And there's a lot going on a pretty tight site already, which is now further being tightened by the right-of-way needs of MDOT. So it's a pretty complex project, and if it makes it to the board level, just wanted you guys to know that it was coming, and if you have questions of the planner or the engineer, it might not hurt to get ahead of them.
I do have questions. I will get on that. All right. Quick 3 items for my report. We do have received notice that Jody Macefield will be stepping off the Planning Commission, so I have talked to a number of people, and I believe I will have a nominee to replace that vacancy on the Planning Commission. Also, I will be absent at the 2 June meetings, but obviously we need to hold at least one of them, and I will be forwarding a Hometown Hero nomination, which has been our tradition, so looking forward to having that person presented to you. Then finally, fireworks on Independence Day. We did have a field visit with the fire chief and the Independence Committee on site with the community building, the aquatic center being constructed there. We are getting tighter and tighter, and there's new rules, so we're literally out there with an electronic measuring device to say, okay, we're 1,000 feet from there and from this road, but we were able to find a launch site once again. So it will be the same place as usual, but just know it's getting tighter in there. You will be able, if the school has the lot open, caveat, to park at the aquatic center, in addition to the Catholic Church, Calplex, and Duncan Lake. But it is tighter, and we will have some control issues to make sure people don't, encroach on the required legal and safety setbacks. So that plan is underway. Okay.
Nothing.
Clerk, Mr. Zoller, Mr. Robertson.
I have a story to tell. You recall a couple years ago, we got this $1.4 million in ARPA money. And the paperwork trail that followed that has been something I've been required to follow up at the end of each succeeding April. By April 30th of the succeeding year, there was a report that was required to be sent to the U.S. Treasury. Initially, you recall, we had to designate the projects which, that we wanted to do. You didn't have to spend the money, but the deadline was that by the end of '24, you at least had to tell Treasury what you were going to do with the money. Now, we spent it all, so we're all good. The end of '23, in the '24 report, which reported on '23, I reported out this is the money we got, we spent it all, we're good, right? And there was something about the audit that had to be done, and Dan, our auditor, helped me kind of go through that, and the portal wasn't working, and so he said, well, just do it next year. So this year I did that part, the audit, and okay, I thought I've washed my hands of this responsibility now. A few weeks ago, I got an email from the US Treasury, notice of non-compliance, and all the penalties that could come with that, including you have to give the money back. And, so I immediately wrote an email to Treasury saying, I did all this. We got the money, spent the money, I reported all this. And a day or so later, I got, which I assume is an automated response from Treasury, thank you for your interest, you've been assigned a case number. Okay, it's just bureaucracy. And so a couple weeks later, I got a second notice of non-compliance from Treasury, and I was saying, you gotta take care of this. Immediately wrote back to Tracy, I've done that, I've done everything, I sent you, I have a case number, and a few days later, I got another case number for that. This week, I got a third notice of non-compliance. I talked to the auditor, and finally, he gave me another email address to try, but then I did get an email from Treasury saying, we've got this, and apparently there's a discrepancy of 2 pennies between the $1.498 million and 88 cents, and they show it as 90 cents. And in my mind, this is the definition of materially insignificant on a $1.4 million thing. But I talked to the auditor, and he said, well, you ought to try to, I think I did it right, but I'll have to look into it tomorrow. I think I can fix it, but this has been
That's crazy.
phenomenal.
Yeah.
That is.
That's crazy.
I'll follow up with a comment on that. I used to count money with Bill Howard. Well, Bill Howard. We were off 4 cents in the church collection. Spent 2 hours fighting it. He would not let us go for 5 cents. So,
Jeez.
When I was
some
in-
people are sticklers.
Rick found it under his chair.
When I was in business, I used to say, if we're 2 cents over, I'm keeping it.
Well, I'll tell you my Dutchman joke after we adjourn. How's that?
Good idea.
Stir everyone.
Move to adjourn.
I think that's wise.
All in favor of adjourn, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed,
Turn off
say
the
no.
recording.